there's this sense, right, that whiteness, right, is under threat. The demographic shifts. The country isn't what all of these racially ambiguous children on Cheerios commercials.
Ooh, we got a good one for you today. We are on the Megyn Kelly show, and as you can see, they're looking at a clip from this guy. Apparently, he's a professor at Princeton University, one of the elite Ivy League universities of the United States of America. And yeah, he's got some things to say about the reason why Kamala Harris lost. And believe me, it wasn't because of her. It was because of you and because of America. Yep, he's got it all figured out. So let's go and see what Megyn Kelly and her guests have to say about this.
For Trump because of inflation in their pocketbooks, their bank accounts, and he stepped back in and said, no, that's, basically said that she was out of touch as a white person. And Stephanie
Stand by.
said,
hold your thought on that. I'm going to play the soundbite and take it on the back end.
So good.
There's this sense, right, that whiteness, right, is under threat. The demographic shifts. The country isn't what all of these racially ambiguous children on Cheerios commercials are confusing the hell out of me. Right?
Hey, a lot of people voted because their life's too damn expensive, and it was here, and it.
They voted for. You're telling me, Stephanie, that all of these people who believe that their lives are, that bread is too high and eggs are too high, that they voted for a convicted felon, a guy who said we can grab the pea.
But I think there are tons of people that don't pay attention to, and I'm not defending it, don't pay attention to politics at all. But while we live in the most prosperous country in the world, people are saying, life's not fair, I'm not doing well, my son's still living in the basement, I can't seem to get a job, I don't like the status quo, I'm voting for something else.
I do not believe that. I cannot believe that.
Oh, Lord.
And the reason I think you
check
believe
your drama.
It is because you don't want to believe that that's what's really motivating them. It's always the case. People don't want to believe what the country actually is, because if they believe it, they're going to have to confront what's in them.
Princeton University professor. Good Lord. Can I just say one thing? Like, all of it, even her, I'm not defending it. They're uninformed. I just want to concede that they're uninformed. I'm not defending it. They don't have the time to understand what a fascist, awful person he is, so they just voted for their pocketbook. And then Emily playing like the emotion. You don't get it. He's basically playing the race card. Like, you don't understand. You don't want to believe what the country is, but I have to live it. I would have laughed in his face. It would have been fun to laugh in his face. Honestly, one of these days I want to sit down. I have a lot of Black listeners and viewers to this show. I would love to see any one of them sitting across from this guy playing his empty race card over and over. It only worked against Stephanie Ruhle because she has currency with these white liberal elites who need you to feel that way. You need to accept Eddie's worldview in order to be invited back to the cocktail party. So she's got to be like, oh, yeah, I feel the same. We're terrible. But, it's just like they didn't do their homework. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Ooh, it's all about the whiteness, dear listeners. It's all about the whiteness. I wonder if that Princeton professor has actually read the founding documents of the United States written by the founding fathers. And the original one says, first of all, they were all white, Mr. Princeton professor, and they founded the country for themselves, themselves specifically, their families, and their posterity, all the people who would descend from them. It was specifically founded, in his view, it'd be specifically founded as a white supremacist country. It was basically founded by Europeans for Europeans. That's the way it was founded, like it or leave it or take it or, that's just the way it was. Obviously, things have changed since then. There's been many ways of immigration. All immigration, for the most part, was restricted to Europe, to Europeans, by the way, until 1965, I believe. And, of course, there was some minority groups, obviously, the slaves themselves and their descendants, obviously, the Native Americans, and, pockets of Mexicans, in certain parts of the country. Yeah, it wasn't founded to be you know, a refuge for the world. So I don't know, Mr. You know, if whiteness is too much for him to bear, if he can't handle the whiteness, maybe he should go to a country which is specifically not white, like pretty much any sub-Saharan African country. Yeah. You know, just an idea. Doesn't have to, but just an idea. The whiteness is too much. Let's see what Megyn Kelly's guests have to say.
Oh, she's my favorite. I call her Stephanie, what about Park Avenue rule? Because one time she actually challenged Biden for demonizing Park Avenue and said people who live on Park Avenue are Americans too, Mr. Biden. Amazing. But that is, I mean, I was thinking the same thing. I was like, I would love to see a Black Trump supporter in conversation with Eddie Glaude Jr. because it is just so insulated. But this is what's happening in the party right now is you have like half of the voices saying that this was about misogyny and racism and the problem was with America, not with Kamala Harris. Then you have the other half, people like John Favreau and Ezra Klein, who are now trying to say the Democratic Party is fundamentally out of touch. You have to start treating people like Joe Rogan, who's a median voter, who's not a conservative person at all. You have to start treating him with respect, and you have to start treating him seriously, and you have to start treating his listeners with respect. And those two positions, what I find amusing and also kind of disgusting about it is that the people who are playing the race and sex card are holding everyone else hostage and prisoner because they, and by the way, everyone else who is now trying to course correct is responsible for their own hostage situation because they emboldened and they promoted that bullshit for years and years and years. And now they're actually trying to course correct and they can't because they're being held back by Eddie Glaude Jr., who said just the dumbest stuff right there and has been promoted to be on MSNBC like every minute of every day. If you look up at MSNBC, there he is because they were supporting and promoting those ideas about American voters.
So right.
Yeah, she makes a very good point. The Democrats have been hoisted by their own petard, as Shakespeare or somebody would have said. Yeah, they've been promoting this anti-white rhetoric. White supremacism everywhere. Whiteness is a problem. They've been promoting that for decades now, but it's really come to a head more recently. In recent years, and finally the voters got fed up with it. I mean, I was fed up with it years ago, but it looks like the voters have spoken, and I really hope the Democrats do not self-reflect. I hope they continue to sneer down at the American people. I hope they continue to promote guys like that Princeton professor, whatever his name is. I hope they continue to their long march through the institutions, the educational institutions, and finally destroy them because they pretty much have already. And I think many, many people are looking for alternatives and realizing there are alternatives to spending tens of thousands of dollars to get a so-called education at an elite university or even a non-elite university. So we can only hope. Let's hope the Democrats keep on this same road. Maybe they'll even run Kamala Harris again in 2028.
Emily, that is so brilliant. That's exactly right. They painted their own prison cells, and now they're locked in them and can't figure out how to get out of them. And Eddie's on the outside like, that you're where you belong. Here's just a little bit more from this guy. The audience may remember we ran a soundbite of him in October where he almost broke down on MSNBC. Watch.
He's dangerous. He's dangerous to particular people because we got to keep this troglodyte out of office. Because if he comes in, our babies are going to be in danger. Because remember, those young children are going to grow up with the memory of having to not go to school for the threat of bombs. And somebody told them that their moms and dads eat cats. They eat cats and dogs. I'll get myself together, Claire.
Okay, take a minute. Deep breath.
Oh
well,
my
what
God.
about that? I understand.
He's got to pull himself together. It's just too much. A rude and brash and brassy and obnoxious presidential candidate said something mean, and he's got to pull himself together. Yeah, I think everybody else is over it, frankly, Mr. Princeton professor.
Eddie, he did need a minute to find his balls. What's with the blubbering? They're going to have to. Oh, my God. The bomb threats were bullshit from a foreign country. Of course, they're talking about Springfield, Ohio, in the wake of the dogs and cats thing. this is a card. This is a manipulation, Eliana, by this guy to be on there like, I'm crying because I'm black and the children were shamed by the dogs and cats thing. And here he is again, now to Stephanie Rule, like, you just don't want to admit what America is to people like me. The whole point of this, and I made this point on Friday, is there's no excising that lunacy from the Democrat Party.
Yeah, well, let's hope so. I hope they don't excise it. I hope they promote it. I hope they fan the flames of it. I hope they double and triple down on it. It's absolutely fantastic to see. Perhaps wiser heads amongst the Democrats will prevail. We shall see. I have my doubts, though. And yeah, I must say, Megyn Kelly has been on fire recently. I actually quite like her show. She's got some pretty good takes. She seems pretty level-headed. She seems to be calling it like it is. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. What do you think of Megyn Kelly? What do you think of that Princeton professor? What was he called? Eddie Glaub or something like that? You know, the unbearable whiteness of being. Good old Princeton professor Eddie Glaub. Let me know what you think. And in the meantime, make sure to subscribe to the channel. It really helps me grow the channel and continue making content for you.